Whew, man, dodged a bullet. A lot of teams dodged a bullet this weekend. I think we're going to call it the bullet dodging weekend, I guess. Minefield week, whatever you want to call it. A lot of teams this past weekend, avoided some very, very dangerous situations. Teams like Alabama avoiding a dangerous situation against a very upset-minded South Carolina. Texas avoiding a situation against upset-minded Mississippi State. A couple more instances of that out there. Welcome back. It's After the Whistle. Monday, October 27th is the date. 2025, year of our Lord. Episode 51. And I completely failed to mention on Thursday's predictions show that was episode 50. The big milestone. 50 episodes of this, starting it last year and then carrying it over into this college football season. We're currently going on year 2 of this college football podcast. And if you are a continuing listener, you listen to every episode, we appreciate it. We really do appreciate all your support, tuning in, you name it. I thoroughly appreciate it, and appreciate you coming back. It means I'm doing something right. If you're tuning in every week, twice a week, and you're tuning into every episode, it means I'm doing something right. We appreciate you being around. So getting into a couple things here that happened over the weekend, not just the games, but so much as the show now. Currently, I know I've been saying here that the show's only available, or has only been available for the last 2 years, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Well, now, as of this weekend, the show is also on YouTube. So you can access the show on YouTube. It's not video yet. The plan is to eventually get to a point where it is a video show. So bear with me on that. That is the ultimate goal, is to have a video like show on YouTube and then have the actual recording, the audio recording on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also Amazon Music. The podcast is also available on Amazon Music. Moving into that. Also, a lot of changes happening. Like I said, man, 50th episode, got to do something big. Got to keep the people coming, keep y'all on your toes. New logo. What y'all think about it? Coming to you on your phone screen there as you listen. You can look down, glance at the new logo. Shout out to my social media coordinator / graphic arts designer / whatever else, whatever other title you want to put on her. My beautiful wife, Ashley, was able to hook me up with that. And very much appreciate it. So the drama, before we get into the results of this weekend's games, the drama that was really not glaring, but there was one thing that was occurring there on Saturday, and Friday night carried over into Saturday. Big news was that there was a report out there that decision makers who were part of Steve Sarkisian's, team, like his agency, had reached out to decision makers in the NFL, letting them know that Steve Sarkisian was interested in making a jump to the NFL. And, this sent everybody kind of in a little bit of a frenzy, because it kind of caught everybody off guard. I'm not saying that it's surprising, or it was surprising when I heard it. However, I didn't retweet it. I didn't repost it on any of my social media. Something about it just was kind of fishy to me. I was like, I don't know if I believe that, because here's the thing. I mean, yes, he's not having the best year this year. They're having to deal with a lot. Quarterbacks making his first year starting under center. A lot of growing pains for that staff, for Steve Sarkisian in general, and plus Texas, big money school, big market, a lot of support. Steve Sarkisian has a lot of support with the fans of Texas. And, I don't know why you would leave a program that is high profile like Texas And the word on the street was the Tennessee Titans job was appealing to Steve Sarkisian. And I'm sorry, but leaving the University of Texas to go coach the Tennessee Titans, even though it is a pro job, like, come on. Like that to me doesn't make any sense. Now if the very storied franchise like, say, the Cowboys reached out to him, I could see talks happening. But Tennessee, I mean, just an absolute bottom of the barrel NFL team. I just don't get the appeal, especially for the head football coach at the University of Texas. It just didn't make any sense to me. And then it came out that the report was not true. It was completely falsified. Steve Sarkisian addressed it in a press conference. And here's the thing with media. We've reached a day, this day and age in the sports media, to where it's always about who can report the most prolific news first. It's not about let's get it accurate. Let's get it right or whatever. That's never been, to me, that used to be a thing. Today's day and age, it's not. And I feel like we've got a really big problem in that regard, where everybody just cares about if they can break the news first. And that's all media. I mean, it's news media, but this is a sports show. It's a college football show, so we're going to talk about college football side of things. And all the media does the same thing. It's the same way it is with regular news media. It is the same way with college football media. It's nobody cares unless it's something that's grabby. They want grabby headlines. They want a lot of clicks. And this is the issue you run into when you put such a heavy emphasis on clicks and engagement in the age of social media, is you get falsified bullcrap articles that aren't true like this. Because somebody like me, I could say, hey, I talked to somebody within a program, very high profile name is going to, leave and go to the NFL. I could say, I talked to a guy inside of the Georgia program and I wrote an article, and Kirby Smart is really thinking about going to the Falcons. And the thing about it is, will people take it and run with it? And that was the situation with this article. People took it and ran with it, and then it became this big, just mushroom cloud over the Texas football program within that, really within a 24-hour period. And to me, it's not fair to the players because they got a game that they're preparing for. It's not fair to Steve Sarkisian to report something like this because he's trying to prepare for a game as well. It's a distraction. And if there's one thing that you don't want on game day or leading up to game day, it's distractions. This is a distraction because you got to think, there's some players on that Texas football team that probably thought, man, coach really leaving us? And then it causes a problem in the locker room. And I'm not saying that the way Texas looked against Mississippi State was a direct, was tied directly into the article and how it was like it probably threw them out of whack emotionally and competitively or whatever. But it probably did, it made its way into the locker room for sure, because those kids have cell phones. They watch TV. They see it just as easily as you and I do. And something that directly affects them like that, like their coach potentially making a move to the NFL, is definitely something that could cause a little bit of a distraction for that football team. And to the journalists that wrote it, man, like, shame on you. Come on. Like, we've got to do our due diligence. I'm in the media space. A lot of people in the media space, when you have podcasts, you write articles, whether it be for whatever, company you work for, 247, On3, ESPN, whoever, Barstool, you name it. You owe it to the people reading the article and the people that the article is about to get it right and report it accurately. That's what we need to do. But like I said, it's a product of the environment where we're in a day and age where we care more about engagement, we care more about clicks, and we care more about being first. It's a competition. It's not about getting it accurate. If we can just put something out there that gets hundreds of thousands of clicks within a couple hours' time, we've done our job regardless of how accurate the story is, and that is preposterous. And, I feel like it's something that needs to go away. Unfortunately, I don't think it will with the increased, usage of social media, the increased usage of the internet, and everything else. It's just going to make it worse. And, that's just the way we are. But I feel like, Steve Sarkisian did the right thing. He probably addressed it with his team first and then addressed it with the media post-game. And, Texas moves on, from that distraction, hopefully. So jumping in, we had a really good week this past weekend. Had a lot of big, high profile games. Picked 8 games on Thursday's prediction show. Went 6-2, so not too shabby. And also won some money on Prize Picks. If you have not used Prize Picks yet, be sure to look it up. It's a fantasy app you can use. You make bets on, receiving yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, field goals made, you name it. You pick an over or an under, more or less, whatever you want to call it. You pick a more or less, and you roll with it, and you get paid this weekend. Total winnings for After the Whistle, $537.75. Total bets made, $85. So very good return on my bets this weekend. Some of my good plays, and I'll just go through them really quick here just in case that anyone is intrigued in this. So I picked Ahmad Hardy was one of my plays that that worked out really well for me. 89.5 rush yards. I picked the over on that. Diego Pavia, I picked the under on his rushing yards prediction total, 56.5. And then also Marcel Reed, pretty much low-hanging fruit here. Easy bet on this one. 0.5 passing touchdowns for Marcel Reed. That was an easy over pick for me. So that's just 3 of my picks of the weekend. Like I said, overall did really well on Prize Picks this weekend. Cleaned up, got a little bit of money. Going to be taking the missus on a date night on the money I made on my Prize Picks winnings this weekend. So jumping right in, like I said, 6-2. 6-2 on my picks this past Saturday, so not too shabby. Let's jump right into Oklahoma, Ole Miss. Ole Miss beats Oklahoma in Norman 34-26. And this was one of the games I didn't get right. I picked Oklahoma. I felt like Oklahoma's physicality on the defensive side was going to be the difference maker in this football game. I felt like Trinidad Chambliss was going to have a hard time moving the football down the field. I felt like that Oklahoma was physical and athletic enough on the defensive side. Guys like, David Stone and others. I felt like they were fast enough and physical enough to contain Trinidad Chambliss, make him one-dimensional, make him win with his arm, make him throw to beat you. And, with the conditions that they were seeing, with the kind of rainy, wet conditions, I felt like that was going to be a winning formula, but unfortunately it wasn't. Ole Miss ends up walking out of Norman with a win. And, thanks to the efforts of Trinidad Chambliss, who, is 24 of 44, 315 yards and a touchdown. Lacey, the running back, had a good day as well. Winston Watkins, 111 yards on 4 receptions. He was their deep ball threat, kind of not the usual suspects, so to speak, on that side of the football. We've been used to hearing like Stribling's name on the Ole Miss side and everything else, but Winston Watkins was kind of just, he was probably their 4th option at receiver this year going into this football game, but really kind of emerged as a very big deep ball threat for Ole Miss going forward. Now, Oklahoma is a team that they're really head scratching to me because they looked really good earlier in the season. And I wouldn't say that they fooled me because I still think that they're a really good football team. It's not so much that I think Oklahoma's terrible, and anything better than what they did last year is going to be acceptable, I feel like, for, Brent Venables. Oklahoma goes, the rest of the way. Say they lose to Alabama, they finish the season 9-3. I feel like that's still a win for a program that had such a bad year like they did last year. But ultimately, it's a year that you want to build off of. so that's definitely something you have to do. But definitely seen some improvements from Oklahoma this season. And if there's any kind of positives to take from that, it looks like that John Mateer is getting healthier. Didn't quite look like he was quite back to form on Saturday, but still, looked pretty good given the circumstances and given the fact that, with he still has that hand. We were told it was like a 2 to 3 week recovery period. It's been about a month now, so the thing should be kind of healed up. But he goes 223 yards, 17 of 31, and a touchdown. Didn't look horribly bad there. It was just the fact that really Oklahoma's defense kind of let them down, and it's a unit that I thought was going to be the difference in the football game. Like I said on Thursday, I thought that Oklahoma's defense was going to be the difference in this football game. But ultimately, Ole Miss with over 400 yards and kept the ball for almost 36 minutes of the football game. That's how you win football games. And Lane Kiffin after the game, it's pretty cool that all the rumors surrounding Lane Kiffin right now are, Lane Kiffin to Florida, and all the Ole Miss fans are there, and he basically is telling them walking off the field, "I'm not leaving," and so we'll see. We'll see about that, but that's definitely where the rumors are definitely circling around him as it pertains to the Florida job. So Group of 5 matchup that was very intriguing to me at noon on Saturday was Memphis and USF. USF going on the road to Memphis, Tennessee. Alex Golesh, Ryan Silverfield, two of the premier, coaches in college football, probably two guys that their name is going to get brought up a lot for these job openings that are going to be available here, the ones that are available now and the ones that will be available by the end of the season or after the season's over. I feel like these two guys are going to be really, more hot commodities in the coaching carousel when it comes time for that. And but what a great matchup between these two. And USF, by all intents and purposes, had this game, pretty much not in their grasp, but they had control of the football game. And Memphis just goes on a tear in the fourth quarter, scores 17 points, comes back and wins this football game. It's 31-17 at the start of the fourth quarter. And you figure USF, with the way that Alex Golesh is, you figure the way this team has played so far this year, that a 2-touchdown lead going into the fourth quarter didn't put a whole lot of stock in that, really, for Memphis. I felt like Memphis was done. But guys from Memphis, like Brendan Lewis, had other ideas, and regardless of the fact that, Memphis was not really able to run the ball that well against USF, but, made it happen one way or another. Memphis still had, the 129 rush yards, but they really kind of spread it out a little bit, so to speak. It was a bunch of different people contributing on Memphis' side rushing. Brendan Lewis, Sutton Smith also had a great day. Greg DeRoziers Jr., Frank Peasant, I believe. So they spread the ball out a lot on the rushing side. But, Brendan Lewis, this is probably one of the best games that a lot of people have seen him play. If you're not used to watching Memphis play, if you haven't seen them play, Brendan Lewis is really the engine that makes that offense go. But finishes the day with 27 of 44, 307 yards, couple touchdowns, and just a gritty performance from Ryan Silverfield and his football team to win. I ultimately picked them to win on Thursday. Now, it was kind of weird because in my pick'em group, I'm a member of a few pick'em groups, but in one pick'em group, I just had kind of a last-minute change of heart, and I picked USF at the last moment in that group just to try something different because everybody's picking the same teams. It's hard to win unless you pick for the upset. You know how it is if you do pick them. And so I took a chance, but on the podcast, I picked Memphis to win, but in the pick'em group, I'm trying to win. So I picked USF because everybody else picked Memphis. I was wrong there. I wasn't wrong on the podcast. So judge that however way you want to. But Memphis, with this win, puts them in a very good position to make a run at that Group of 5 playoff spot. And I think I saw after the game there was with a loss, it was like a 7 or 8% chance to make the playoff for either team. So, this was essentially not a pseudo playoff game, but like a, playoff elimination game. Unless there's a lot of chaos. A lot of chaos ensues in the Group of 5, brings USF back into the fold. I think this was pretty much the done deal for them. I think it's, Memphis's race to lose going forward on that side of things. I think there's some good teams in that Group of 5, but Memphis kind of proved that even though with the loss the weekend before, that they're still firmly in this Group of 5 playoff race. And South Florida, like I said, they're pretty much eliminated from the contention of that unless there's some kind of just crazy just carnage that happens over the next few weeks. So Arkansas and Auburn. And this was another game that I felt like Arkansas was going to get it done based off what they did against Texas A&M the weekend prior, with them putting up 42 points against, to me, one of the best defenses in college football. But Auburn finally had a game where I felt like they put it all kind of together in a way. And now it looked pretty gloomy at halftime. I mean, 21-10 at halftime. People are booing. Auburn fans are all over social media about to have a fit. But at the end of the day, Hugh Freeze finally makes a quarterback change. Ashton Daniels looked great. I think Auburn needs to continue to roll with Ashton Daniels. But Jeremiah Cobb, heck of a day for him. 28 carries, 153 yards. They ran all over Arkansas. And, that was the big thing with Auburn coming into this football game was, running the football. They had to run the football. They had to play good defense. And they did play pretty good defense. I mean, giving up 24 points to Arkansas with that dynamic offense that they had. And Arkansas statistically doesn't have a bad offense. But Auburn able to somewhat hold them in check, force 3 turnovers. That was a big one. 3 interceptions thrown by Taylon Green was what really gave Auburn that resurgence to get them in this football game, to grasp control of this football game and ultimately win it. But, Jeremiah Cobb, like I said, with 28 carries, 153 yards, and then, you had a couple guys contribute to the rushing total. Mabson, Singleton, Ashton Daniels also had 7 carries for 35 yards as well. Singleton had a big day, receiving out there, two catches for 56 yards, I believe. So Auburn finally had a day where I feel like they kind of put it all together. And, you look at the havoc that was wreaked, especially on the defensive side, because Auburn's defense, y'all, I mean, I've had people say, like, no way. Auburn's got a really good defense. But Xavier Atkins, 13 tackles, 2 sacks, just dude's a monster. I mean, just really was one of those. He's one of those guys you need to be looking for him. If you're a quarterback, you need to find him every time. I mean, you've got to find out, where he's at. And that's a big one for me. But he, great player there, Xavier Atkins. And, Auburn gets a big win. I think it quiets down the talk about the Hugh Freeze hot seat just a little bit, but I still think that seat is very firmly hot. I don't think that Hugh Freeze is really going to escape much of the hot seat talk unless he wins out. I think if Auburn wins out, they go 8-4, maybe. You don't hear as much about the hot seat and Hugh Freeze as you are right now, but Auburn still got, as a couple generations of people older than us would say, they got a tough row to hoe coming up because they go to Vanderbilt on November 8th. Then they have Alabama coming to town on the 29th of November as well. So 2 ranked opponents, 2 top 10 opponents still on Auburn's schedule, aside from the fact that they have Kentucky coming to town next Saturday and then Mercer on November 22nd. So now I feel like Auburn finishes the season 6-6 is what the projection looks like at this very moment. I feel like they lose to Vanderbilt. I feel like they lose to Bama. I feel like they beat Kentucky and beat Mercer, and to finish the season 6-6. And I feel like the hot seat talk does not cool off on Hugh Freeze, and it really shouldn't. So Alabama and South Carolina, and one of my best picks of the weekend, because I really like the fact that I picked Bama, but I felt like South Carolina was going to cover. The reason for that is if you've never been in Columbia and you've never been in Williams-Brice Stadium, you just don't understand how loud that place is and how difficult a place it can be to play. There's been many good teams that have fallen in that building over the years. And South Carolina just one of those teams that I felt like they've looked kind of subpar this year. And I felt like there was going to be a game where they were going to put it together. Maybe. I thought that maybe they might put it together. And, they looked good for the most part. Lenore Sellers with a, very Lenore Sellers type performance, with 222 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and added 18 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. He did all he could, but the issue, to me with South Carolina was there towards the end of this football game, just failure to get stops on defense. And that ultimately is what was the shortcoming of South Carolina, was the fact that just the failure to get stops on the drive where Bama drove down the field to tie it up at 22. You've got plenty of opportunities to get them you got them on third down. You got to stop them. They convert. Just a lot of issues on that front. Then they get down there, they score. You got a 2-point conversion. You got to find a way to keep them from getting it, and just couldn't. And then don't even get me started on the final possession for Alabama as well. But hate it for Shane Beamer. I like Shane Beamer as a person. At some point, we got to talk about, moving forward, South Carolina. Does South Carolina want Shane Beamer around longer? Do they want him around long term? Because clearly not working out. Seeing the same issues last year. It was a good year. That was Shane Beamer's best year. Was last year, but issue now is, where do you go from here? You're 3-5. You still got a few games. You still got some tough games coming up. You got A&M. You got Ole Miss. You got 2 losses there. You got Coastal. And then you have Clemson, which I feel like is a toss-up game. So, you could finish the last 4 games 2-2, but then you finish 5-7. So the questions will be around, Shane Beamer after this season. I feel like that could be another coach that could be on his way out the door. But shout out to South Carolina's defense. It's not all going to be negative here. They played good defense on stopping the run. Alabama, 23 carries for 72 yards was their rushing total. South Carolina did a great job limiting Bama's offense, making them somewhat one-dimensional, but still, Bama just still pretty decent on third down, 50% on third down. But you look at the difference in the 2 halves, Alabama was a lot better in the second half. They were in the first half. They just had to settle in. Couple turnovers, fumbles that proved costly for Alabama early, and South Carolina took advantage of them. But the resiliency of Alabama is what really won this football game, because there's a lot of teams that, they turn the ball over 2 times, they go down, and it's tough for teams like that to bounce back, so to speak. But scoring 15 points in the fourth quarter is exactly what you have to do to win these kind of football games when you're down. And like I said, at one point Carolina's up 15-14. Everybody's thinking like, man, this looks like it's got the makings of an upset, and Alabama goes in, the fourth quarter, outscores Carolina 15-7, ends up winning this game by 7 points, thus covering the spread, which makes my prediction look really good. And I know a particular person that owes me a Jersey Mike's sub. We bet a Jersey Mike's sub on Alabama covering the spread. You know who you are. I'm going to be looking to collect this week. So, Vanderbilt and Missouri. Game of the week. We had no one guess the final score correctly. Excuse me for a second. And no one guessed the correct final score because everybody was thinking, and myself included, was thinking that this game was going to be a lot higher scoring than it was. You know, we had a lot of people come in 34-31, 35-30. You know, everybody was in the upper 20s, low 30s for this score. I don't think anybody foresaw a 17-10 defensive struggle in Nashville between Vandy and Mizzou. I don't think anybody saw that. But one thing it proved to us about Vanderbilt is they have the ability to win these kind of football games. You know, I picked Vanderbilt to win this football game, but they have the ability to win this because I thought, honestly, and I didn't really talk about it on Thursday's show, but if you would have told me last week, just blind score, no teams, the final score of the, Vandy-Mizzou game is going to be 17-10. Who would I have thought would have won? Or who, and I would have guessed Mizzou because I felt like a low-scoring game meant that Missouri ran the ball, which they did. They ran the ball very well still. But I would feel like they would run the ball and play really good defense. Disruptive defense. They'd be in the backfield for Vanderbilt, force a couple turnovers, so to speak. But if you'd have told me this was going to be the final score last week, I would have probably guessed it was Mizzou winning this football game. But proved to us that Clark Lea's team is a team that can win the slugfest, rock fight type of football game. And we've seen Vanderbilt win shootouts this year, and we've seen them win these type of games. And I think it's time to start to think that Vanderbilt is an actual pretty good football team. I know it's hard for some of y'all, myself included, because we grew up and we watched a Vanderbilt team that was just terrible year in and year out. I remember specifically one year where Vanderbilt, the over and under preseason for win totals for Vanderbilt one year, I remember, was set at 2.5. I still remember that. And now look how far this team's come. And that was probably maybe 10 years ago, something like that. Look how far this team's come. And it's amazing, amazing job that Clark Lea's done there in Nashville. And that leads me to another point. And, when it comes to these job openings that are going to be available, why not Clark Lea? That's, to me, that's a big one. Why not Clark Lea? Because done a heck of a job turning this football program around. Basically pulled it out of the dumps and resurrected it in a way. If you'd have told me that Vanderbilt was going to be a top 10 team before the season, you said, hey, Colby, by week 9, Vanderbilt's going to be a top 10 team, I would have laughed, fallen on the ground laughing. But here we are. And this should be a little not concerning, but if you're a Vanderbilt fan, this should be encouraging. If you're not a Vanderbilt fan, this should be concerning because Vanderbilt was beat statistically in every single category and still found a way to win the football game. Missouri, more first downs. Missouri, better on third down. More yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, less penalties. They both had the same amount of turnovers at 1, but then Mizzou had the ball for over 36 minutes. And then Vanderbilt has the ball for about 24 minutes. But they still found a way to win. And that to me is, dangerous when you got a team that just finds a way to win. They're resilient. They find a way to win. And this team does have a lot of talent on it. Lots of talent. this isn't the same Vanderbilt. Trey Richardson, Eli Stowers, Cedric Alexander. I mean, even Diego Pavia. You got talent everywhere. This isn't the same Vanderbilt team we grew up watching. C.J. Hurd, Miles Capers, Langston Patterson, Brian Longwell on that defense. Tackle machines. And so it's time we start to put a little bit of respect on Vanderbilt. I can't believe I'm saying that, but stranger things have happened. Just going to say. So Texas A&M and LSU, and the best way to describe this football game is LSU got taken behind the woodshed. And if you've heard that metaphor before, you understand it. But LSU got taken behind the woodshed by Texas A&M. I mean, this was a game that, I felt that Texas A&M's physicality was going to be too much for LSU, but I still felt like it was going to be a slugfest type football game, potentially low scoring. I felt like, that we were going to see LSU's best effort because it was in Death Valley and it was at night. But man, did I see a team quit or what? Texas A&M, LSU at the half. When we look at this game and we look at how it was at halftime, with LSU holding the lead at halftime, 18-14, I thought watching the game, I was like, man, they're in a good position because they carry that momentum into the second half, get a stop, and then they could put themselves right back in a position to go up 11 points, essentially. What happens? Texas Tech gets the ball to start the second half, drives down the field, touchdown. LSU gets the ball back after that touchdown. It's 18-14, and now it's, 21-18. Then LSU gets the ball back, 3 and out, punt, KC Concepcion, punt return touchdown. That moment right there is where I felt like LSU quit as a football team. They quit right there on that punt return touchdown to put A&M up 28-18. I felt like that was where that team quit. And you can talk about the coaching all you want. You can talk about, you can talk about whatever. But at the end of the day, football is a game of execution. The coaches can coach something up all they want to. At the end of the day, it's the player's responsibility to get out there and execute. But I can say at some point, the lack of execution doesn't get fixed, and it's more of a concern to me. If you're a fan, it should be more of a concern if you're an LSU fan, that the same mistakes that we're seeing week in and week out with this LSU Tiger football program are still rearing their ugly head. And at some point, you have to point the finger at the coach, and you have to point it at Brian Kelly, because he can say all he wants in the press conference, like, I'm not doing a good enough job putting my team in positions to win, or I'm not doing a good enough job coaching it all. It all falls at my feet, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're dang right it does. Like, that's your job, dude. But the issue is you see the same problems happen week in and week out. The same issues and the same mistakes that LSU was making in week 1 and week 2, they're still making now in week 8, week 9. Their punt containment, their punt returning is terrible. The punter doesn't put enough air on the ball. He still hasn't. He still kicks line drives. Why are you kicking a line drive to KC Concepcion, one of the most dynamic returners in all of college football, and you're going to kick a line drive that's got like 3 seconds of hang time? Your gunners don't have time to get down there to cover the punt, and you're going to give him about a 15-yard cushion? The same things. Ole Miss has been doing that, or LSU's been doing that same stuff all year. I mean, and you see him try to correct it from the sideline, and he's talking to the punter, and he's talking to the special teams coach. But, I mean, shouldn't you coach that up the first time it happens? Weeks ago? Because he's been doing it all year. LSU, other teams are more successful against LSU, like returning punts, than any other team, really. I mean, You see it every week. Guy's going to catch the ball, and he's going to have a 15-yard cushion to just dance around and pick a lane and go. I mean, to me, you got to make adjustments. You got to coach better. At some point, you just have to realize that this team is just not physically tough. They're just not. They're not physically tough, and I don't think they're mentally tough either, because I think the two go hand in hand. When it comes to football, I think the two go hand in hand. If you're physically tough, you're mentally tough. And looks like a team to me that is not physically tough. And, you've heard the rumblings of, whenever Brian Kelly was hired at LSU, LSU had a guy in the building that was a strength and conditioning coach by the name of Tommy Moffitt. He'd been in Baton Rouge for 2 decades, I think it was. And Brian Kelly got rid of him. Funnier twist to that story is, guess where Tommy Moffitt is the strength and conditioning coach at now? Texas A&M. And I don't think it's any secret to see that for 2 years in a row, physically, Texas A&M has bullied LSU. Bullied them. And, I mean, first year under Mike Elko, second year under Mike Elko, first and second years with Tommy Moffitt in College Station, pushing around LSU. So, might should have kept him on board there, old BK. That would have been a good idea, but now he's, in College Station and taking it to you. But like I said, this was a woodshed-style beating. I mean, just a unreal, I felt like at some point I was like, man, running clock. Let's do a running clock in the fourth quarter. I was about to fall asleep. I had to drink a Red Bull halfway through the third quarter. Or not halfway through the third quarter. I had to drink a Red Bull at the end of the third quarter because I was like, man, this game's getting boring. LSU's just showing no fight whatsoever. None. But in order for me to sit here and talk about the game, I have to watch it. So, but LSU looks bad, man. I feel like this is not the last loss on their schedule. They still have some really brutal games coming up. I mean, they got Alabama, got a bye week, and they go to Tuscaloosa. Then they got Arkansas coming, which has proven to not be Arkansas has proven to be kind of a tough out for some teams, Texas A&M included. And then you finish the year going to Norman, Oklahoma on November 28th. So the road is not easy from, 2 of their last 3 games, or 2 of their last 4 games are against ranked opponents. So, LSU could very well have 2 more losses. 2 more losses, you finish 7-5, or heck, if you drop one you're not supposed to, you finish 6-6. I mean, the Baton Rouge faithful coming for your head for sure then. That is just completely inexcusable in Baton Rouge. But, I've alluded to the point that, is Brian Kelly the guy? And I just don't think he is. So another pick that I made that came out to be just like I said, BYU over Iowa State. And this BYU team, guys, I'm telling y'all, like, I know last year there was a point where BYU was undefeated and looked really good, and then they just ran into a buzzsaw, got beat, and then it was kind of just bad sledding, tough sledding from there on out for BYU. I think it was when Retzlaff was the quarterback there at Brigham Young. And now, this year, fast forward, you got Bear Bachmeier, freshman starting quarterback, looks great, poised, accurate, very good arm, like just all the intangibles and all the traits you want in a good quarterback. And he's only a freshman. But BYU looks really good. They're physical, they're fast, they play good technically sound football there. And, another win for them, in the Big 12, 41-27 over Iowa State, a 2-touchdown win over Matt Campbell's squad is, at the same time, it is still a very good win. I mean, Rocco Beck throws 3 interceptions, and turned out that's a pretty big difference in the football game there. But Bachmeier just as poised as he's been all year. 22-35. I think he had two touchdowns, 307 yards. So just a great performance there by him. Great performance as well by Parker Kingston. Just this BYU team could make a little bit of noise. And I know I said earlier in the year that I thought that Texas Tech was a shoe-in or not a shoe-in, but I felt like that they were going to win the Big 12. But now BYU sitting on top of the conference with Cincinnati. Texas Tech right there hanging out 4-1 in conference. But BYU and Cincy playing some, really good ball. BYU, as with their ability to just play, they're not going to beat themselves. That's the thing about BYU is, sure, are there more talented teams in the Big 12? Sure, I think Texas Tech is more talented than BYU. And cool thing about that, November 8th, BYU goes to Texas Tech. And that will be a huge contest with huge Big 12 implications. But to me, BYU is just one of those teams where they're going to come out, they're going to execute, they're not going to turn the ball over much, they're not going to beat themselves. You have to beat BYU. You can't turn the ball over or anything like that because they're going to beat you if you do. But you have to just go out there and play physical, play good football, great football, rather. But this team's not going to beat themselves. But looking at their schedule leading out, for the remainder of the year, I mean, they've got Texas Tech on the road and they've got Cincinnati on the road. So the other two teams that are on top of the Big 12 conference with BYU, they've got to go on the road and play both of those teams. I feel like BYU splits those. They've still earned their way into the playoff. I think. I feel like that's the case. Now, if they lose both of them, then it's really a tough case to make. But you split them, so you beat Texas Tech, but you lose to Cincy. It's on the road. Obviously, a loss on the road's weighted a little bit differently than a loss at home. So, we'll see. But BYU for me right now is I've changed my tune a little bit on that in that sense because Texas Tech was my favorite to win the conference. Now BYU's my favorite to win the conference. I really like what I see out of this football team, but it's like I say all the time, it'll all come out in the wash because they still have to play two of those top teams in the Big 12 moving forward. And how about the Washington Huskies? This was another one that, with Illinois, who I felt like was criminally overrated and has been criminally overrated for the whole season pretty much. We've just tried, AP voters have just tried to keep Illinois hanging around this, in the top 25, even after they got absolutely dismembered by Indiana. I felt like that was enough to kick them out. I felt like they don't belong in there. But the AP poll voters have continued to keep Illinois among the top 25. And they don't belong there. They don't deserve to be in there. And if you needed further proof, you got it this weekend. Washington beat the piss out of them. And Washington's one of those teams that when they get it going, man, with guys like Jonah Coleman, when they get it going running the football, they're tough to stop. Damon Williams, trying to say like three names at once that I have in my notes here, and I wrote them too close together. But Damon Williams, when he's throwing the ball like he was, throwing 4 touchdowns, 280 yards, efficient, 26 of 33. And when you've got Jonah Coleman running the rock, over 5 yards a carry, Damon Williams as well ran the ball very well, averaged over 6.5 yards a carry. But then you got Denzel Boston. I mean, this is one of the most talented teams to me, sitting at 6-2 and sitting at unranked. Washington to me should be ranked. Very good football team, a lot of playmakers, a lot of NFL talent on this roster, and should be there. And we're going to go over the AP poll, the new AP poll, here in just a few minutes. But Washington, great win for that team. Altmaier, just kind of been one of them guys. He's kind of tapered off there at the end of the season. Towards the end of the season, has just kind of been, a lot of people were high on him to start the season just because he's, felt like he's been playing college football for 20 years and, he's a savvy veteran, and everybody's like, oh man, like you're not going to show him nothing he hasn't seen before. And just, he started off the season really good. And then it's just kind of the latter half of this season, he's just kind of tapered off. And, Another loss for Brett Bielema in that squad. But like I said, criminally overrated was this Illinois football team, and I'm glad that finally we don't have to see this Illinois team with a little number beside their logo anymore, because they're one of the most fraudulent teams in college football, in my opinion. Had everything in front of them, couldn't make it happen. So just recapping, quick firing some scores around the country. Some games we didn't cover. Indiana over UCLA 56-6. Indiana, Indiana, and at times I've been critical of Indiana because I've said, they haven't really played a whole lot of teams that can give them a problem, blah, 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 all this stuff. Indiana's for real. And I had to kind of eat my words a little bit this weekend, because watching that team play UCLA, granted UCLA's not some powerhouse, but they have been playing a lot better brand of football over the last 3 weeks than they did the 4 weeks prior, or the 5 weeks prior, or whatever. But just Indiana just beats teams. I mean, it's not even so much like Indiana's squeaking out some wins. It is just, they beat Oregon, a top 10 team, by 10 points. And it was a thorough butt kicking. It wasn't like a thing where Oregon, they pulled away late or nothing like that. No, Indiana was in firm control of that football game from start to finish. So, Indiana's for real. That's one conclusion I have drawn after this weekend. Recapping some more scores. Excuse me. Recapping some more scores around the country. Oregon 21-7 over Wisconsin. Kind of surprising there. Oregon was favored by, I think the line on this game was 25.5 or 28.5 or something like that. So Oregon only mustering 21 points, kind of a red flag for me for this football team, especially at home. Just that's a stinky one. It's a very stinky one. I'd keep an eye on this Oregon football team moving forward after that. Georgia Tech over Syracuse 41-16. Tech remains undefeated at number 7 in last week's AP. We'll go over that here in just a minute where they stand. Miami over Stanford 42-7. And Texas Tech covers the spread against Oklahoma State. Can't remember what the spread was. It was ridiculous. I think it was like 31.5. They cover it. They win 42-0 over Oklahoma State. Virginia beats North Carolina in overtime 17-16. Tennessee scores 56, beats Kentucky 56-34. Louisville beats Boston College 38-24. Cincinnati wins 41-20 over Baylor. Then we have Houston beating Arizona State. A little bit of an upset there. 24-16 over ranked 24th Arizona State. And Michigan beats little brother Michigan State 31-20. All right, so now we have an updated AP. We're going to go through it, see where some teams have moved up. There was no change in the top 6. There was no movement there whatsoever. So we're going to start at 25 like we always do, work our way down the list. And what we have Memphis, well-earned, at 25. We have Utah at 24, USC at 23, Houston at 22. All 4 of those teams previously unranked. Moving on, 21, we got Michigan, Texas at 20, Mizzou at 19th, Oklahoma at 18, excuse me, Cincinnati at 17, Louisville at 16, Virginia 15, Tennessee 14, Texas Tech 13, Notre Dame 12, Miami 10th, BYU moves up into the top 10 at number 10. Vanderbilt moves up to 9. Georgia Tech goes down 1 spot to 8th, gets leapfrogged by Ole Miss at 7. And then the usual, from last week, same thing, 6 through 1, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Indiana, Ohio State. And so when we look at this, I really don't have a whole lot of gripes with this poll. I really don't. Now, there's a couple head scratchers, but it's really just opinion-based type things. But I feel like there's some teams that, for me, Washington is one of those teams. I feel like you could make the case for Washington to be in here. That, to me, is the only one that I'm seeing that I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I think we need to look at that But, South Florida, LSU, Illinois, and Arizona State all drop outside of the top 25 in this week's AP poll. And we do have the first set of college football playoff rankings coming up. I think it's not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend, or it might be this weekend. I can't remember. If y'all bear with me for a second, I'll look it up. Let's see. We'll check it out really quick because let's see. We will have, it looks like, when does it start though? Tuesday, November 4th. Okay. So after this upcoming weekend of games, we will have Tuesday, November 4th, we will have the first set of college football playoff rankings. The goal here is I will be going live on YouTube, and I believe it will split with my Facebook page as well. But I will be live on the YouTube channel to go over the first college football playoff rankings of the year. It looks like it will be announced at 8 o'clock. TV program will run from 8 to 8:45. So I will do that as well. So y'all be sure to mark your calendars, put a reminder in your phone, whatever, tune in for that, and we'll talk about the rankings released together when they come out. Like I said, be sure to check me out on the socials. Also, I am available. The show is available on YouTube now. Be sure to check that out as well. So Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Amazon Music is where you can find this college football podcast. And that's been it. It's been great again. Always fun to sit here and talk college football with you guys. And we will have a brand new set of predictions coming up this Thursday on the Prediction Show. Y'all be sure to tune into that. Until then, y'all have a great week at your job or whatever else you're going to be doing this week. Have a good week. Be safe, and I'll catch y'all on Thursday. See y'all.